Hello, my name is Jamie Shanks. I'm the CEO of Sales for Life, and welcome to the Digital Sales Engine. I want to be able to bring you mindset, skill set, tool set to be able to scale your sales success with the ideal tech stack. In the next 25 minutes, here's what I want to cover. Number one, you got to get the right mindset going. Then, once your team has the right mindset, you then introduce the right skills, modernize that sales team, and then finally, you mechanize the process with a tool set shift. First, let's concentrate on the mindset of your sales team today. Jill Rowley loves saying this quote, and it is so true. A fool with a tool is still a fool, and a fool with multiple tools is an even bigger fool. Here's the reality. I can't give the keys to a Ferrari to somebody that can't drive. Don't give people a tech stack when they can't even do something manually. If they don't believe it, if they can't do the process manually, by putting an accelerant on it, a $1,000 a month tool or a $50 a month tool, it's not going to help the process. Most of us think of technology as essential for succeeding in sales today. That is not true. It is a mindset. If you were to look at some of the data from Mark Roberge at HubSpot, he's recognized that in his sales team, it was the sales professionals that were hungry to learn, try new things, intrigued by developing themselves more than their ability to negotiate or leverage technology to be able to maximize the sales process. It is not about technology. It is about the sales professional changing the way they think about approaching the market. Sales technologies are merely applications that help accelerate an existing process. If I could do something manually, I want to throw accelerant on it. Without a proper mindset and then skill set, and of course a process to pull it all together, your sales efforts are bound to fail. We are entering the age of the customer. This is incredible research done by Forrester that has recognized that we have changed more in the last few years than we have in the entire history of selling from door-to-door soap all the way to today. The reality is the age of the customer is thinking about how you can better serve them and apply a sales process that better serves that customer-centric experience. B2B buyers are more empowered, and I don't care what you say. If you tell me my buyers aren't online, you're crazy. The reality is a buyer comes home, they're on their couch, just like they're researching building a new vehicle or buying a new home, they're also thinking of ERP software or insurance programs for their business or any sort of facet that improves their day-to-day life in business. The reality was it used to be that the sales professional controlled the best practices, the knowledge, the information, and now that's in the hands of the customer. The customer, it's caveat venditor, let the seller beware. The reality is the customer is arming themselves with information to make informed decisions and then needs to talk to you. Now, there's a statistic that Forrester's has outlined here, and it's that 12% of US B2B sales teams will be digital. And the reality, or B2B sales is going to be digital. The reality is we already inherently know this. We know that we as buyers and consumers have changed in the business to consumer context. As I just mentioned, think of the last time that you started building a car online or shop for jeans online. Don't think for a moment that software or services or any other business-to-business application is not also being Googled. It is. The question, are you bridging the gap? Are you meeting the buyer at least halfway through that journey? And is your sales team doing it? The reality is this is where we need to get to. I personally think this is the most important statistic for social selling and the reason why we need to do it. This was a joint venture between Forrester and Corporate Visions. And what it basically said is that 74% of today's B2B buyers conduct more than half of their research online before making a purchase. And the reality is the same sort of statistic Forrester has done as well and it basically stated that 74% of deals were awarded to the sales professional that was first to provide value and insight. It's like the movie Inception. You plant a seed in somebody's mind, and when they finally need you, whether that's a week later or 4 months later, they're going to go back to the source that provide them value and new ideas and new ways of thinking of things. Your team needs to have that teacher-student relationship. And so this is what the buyer's looking for. They're looking for, I'm going to do due diligence online, and then somebody is meeting me along that journey to help me go from, I've moved from why, I'm starting to investigate how online, and at some point during the how, as I move towards the who, I'm being linked up with a sales professional that is pulling me, or, and as Grant Cardone would say, instead of being a tugboat, you're being a lighthouse. You become a lighthouse for them to move from the how to the who. Now, there's a lot of controversy around this. We did an ebook on, or an infographic on this topic, and that it was 1 million sales professionals would be dispersed and eliminated by 2020. And I believe it to be true. I can tell you, I'll give you a quick story. When I was a director of sales at a SaaS software company, I remember the CEO, he would have people in the office and he would walk by and he would say, oh, this is Jamie. He's our top demo doer. And in 2009, that was fine. I hated it. It drove me crazy because my value was being distilled down to being a tape recorder. But the reality is your demo doers are going to die. They are not going to survive this. And so we need to think about now the behavioral change necessary for sales to succeed in 2017 and beyond. And that's where we need to introduce a skill set. So first, we changed the way you need to think. The reality is my buyer has changed. Have I as a leader changed, or have I as a sales professional changed to be able to address the new buyer? I cannot continue selling the way I have. If you have now crossed that chasm, now it's time to improve the skill. And when you've done that, you have Forrester's business-to-business buyer selling archetypes. You have basically 4 types of sellers. You have explainers. That was me basically doing demos. You have consultants who are enlightening, painting broader pictures, taking business cases from one unit to the next. You have navigators, which are guiding people along the journey. And then you have order takers. And so what Forrester has done here is taken these archetypes and modeled what they believe will be the survivors and those that are going to be running ice cream trucks in the future. And the reality is this is what they see. They see, and you can imagine, order takers, gonzo. They're not surviving this, okay? Because the buyer, and listen, look at the car dealership world. The reality is in the city of Toronto where we live, there are already car dealerships going sales professional less. They don't need them anymore because the buyers are coming in and have built the car already online, and they just say, order me this. The next are the explainers. That was me. 27% job loss, and it's because of technology. You have all kinds of video technology. You have all kinds of online demonstration technology that helps paint a vivid picture for the buyer, no different than the tape recorder does when you do a quote-unquote demo. The navigator. The navigator, and this is a form of relationship sellers and customer success people who what they're really basically doing is helping just with some, I don't know if it's customer success, it's more customer support. That's what navigators are. And the reality is again, with technology, it allows us to automate some of the touch points, some of the cadences, some of the workflow that a navigator would do. So the survivors are going to be the dynamic thinkers, the ones that can take the information coming from one business unit or a competitive market and spin it to the buyer and help them paint a picture of where it's all going. The ones that can take and curate great information from the best practices in the industry and bring it forward to the customer and say, like we're doing here on this webinar, bringing you Forrester data and saying, this is what's happening. How do we change? And then they can not only, as Gary Vaynerchuk would say, clouds and dirt, they can not only get to the clouds and paint a big picture, but they can get tactical and they can help you understand what does it mean for your business or your business unit. The survivors are going to be the consultants, the ones that can think dynamically. And technology is going to displace the order takers and explainers as I just described. So let's actually focus in on the navigators and the consultants, okay? And that sole survivor being the consultant. Why is that? Because 62% of B2B sales professionals will still be order takers and explainers. They're gone. But what about the navigators? The navigators and consultants are best equipped to deliver the services the buyer needs. But I'm a believer, and I look at it in my own business, and I look at it in our customers' business. Their customer success teams are wildly important, especially for SaaS software companies where you have to have positive churn. You know, customer success is vital, but there's technology allowing to do journey maps, allowing to do touch point cadences, allowing to aid the great customer success people along that path. And from a pre-sale standpoint, our buyers too, at least in our business, and I look around, the buyer's too dynamic. They don't follow the linear path that the navigator might be used to going through. They need to be dynamic and thinking of a variety of different things that are outside of the scope of your typical journey map. That's where the consultant comes in, to help the customer buy whenever, however, whatever they need. Trim down the solution, expand the solution, think dynamically. Consultants, salesperson of the future. Understand the customer cycle. Is socially networking, and there's a lot going on right now between industry experts and thought leaders. Not every sales professional can be a thought leader, come on. But what they can do is be an industry expert. They can know more about payroll time and attendance, or insurance programs, or engineering best practices than their buyer. Very quick story. I used to be in corporate real estate, right? A consultant-heavy business. Commercial real estate required a lot of dynamic thinking as you're dealing with the CEOs and the CFOs. And I remember I was kind of down in the dumps. 4 months into the deal, I was nervous talking to all these CFOs in Toronto. And the CEO of my company pulled me aside and he said, "How many real estate transactions are you a part of in the last 4 months when you started this job here?" I said, "I'm working on 15 deals." And he said, "Did you know that the average CFO only does one major real estate transaction in their life? So you have 15 times more experience than they do already in your tenure." The reality is your job is to teach them those best practices. All the things you're seeing from company A, help them mirror it to company B. And that's the important piece. Your customer may think that they're smart, but you need to paint them the opportunity cost, and you need to show them what the reality of success really looks like. B2B sales are going to have a digital reboot. They're going to embrace technology. They're going to share these ideas socially, digitally. They're going to constantly be expanding their business acumen, constantly curating the best practices, not just from what they do. Like, you may sell ERP solutions. That doesn't mean you just read about the ERP solutions. Your buyer is the chief technology officer. So your business acumen is about learning what keeps them up at night, what they read. They communicate this effectively. They seek collaboration. They're bringing together customers. It's a giant networking game. Let me introduce one customer to the next customer and let them talk. And then they leverage data. And execs are unsatisfied with their interactions. And I think that this is quite obvious. They don't want to be pounded with cold calls. They need somebody to bring them a new idea that can move the needle in their business. I'm a CEO of a business. I know what gets my attention is when somebody brings me something I've never seen or never thought of, or a new way of thinking of something. Not just slinging over emails and saying, "Do you have 30 minutes to chat?" Of course I don't. But when I do have time is to learn something new. So those B2B sales professionals are going to have this digital reboot. 20% of vendors who do not work with executives to understand their challenges and create a shared vision of path to solve them get awarded with 74% of deals. And this is that statistic I talked to you about, Foresters in a joint venture with Corporate Visions. If you get there first, and you shape the mind share of the buyer, and you apply the skills that we're talking about, you're going to win the deals because they're going to think of you. People buy from people, and they want to deal with the sales professional and then the customer success team and the company that seems to get their business. Now, let's get into the tools. And when we get into the tools, I'm a huge believer that the best tools are meant to mechanize the process. Okay? You take what you know manually and you mechanize it. Let's think about it in our automobiles. We used to drive 5-speed standard cars and 6-speed standard cars. What have they done in North America? They basically ripped out the transmission and made it automatic. It's faster, it's more reliable, it's better. I'm a huge believer that if you can't drive a car, I am not giving you a tool for you to just whittle away on. I want to see that you can learn something new, change your behavior manually, and then once you do it, I'm going to reward you and accelerate that. The key word here is I'm going to give you the skills in the process to do it manually, and then I'm going to throw an accelerant on it. Because there is no question, the tech stack is overwhelming. There is hundreds and hundreds. And in fact, when I started getting into the sales community in the early 2000s, the sales tech stack was pretty simple. And it's been in the last 5 years or so that the sales acceleration space has really hockey sticked. And what I want you to get out of this is there is a tool that can accelerate every stage of the funnel, from top of the funnel to shortening the velocity of the deals, to sharpening your proposals, to greater customer success, to greater internal education. It's all here. But first, I'm a huge believer that you have to get everybody aligned, that they believe it, they want it, that their mindset has changed. They start learning new skills, they start applying them, and they say, it's not moving fast enough for me. Now I need to triple that capacity. I need to basically increase my throughput or yield dramatically. Get me a tool that does this. That's what you're looking for. So here are the questions that I want you to ask yourself. How many tools am I asking my sales professionals to learn and use consistently? Not only just these tools, are they integrated into the fundamentals that they use? Basically, think of a sales professional. They open up their email, they open up their CRM, and they open up the social platforms, hopefully the social platforms that they need, like a LinkedIn and Twitter. So how many tools do we need, but also that integrate into that process? Are my reps up to speed on the basics? Can they get like the blocking and the tackling? CRM, marketing automation. And when I say marketing automation, I'm looking at your sales team as well. There is no sense having Eloqua, Marketo, HubSpot, Silverpop, whatever marketing automation platform you have, and it's only being viewed by the marketing team. All the insights, all the content consumption story, if it's not getting in the hands of the sales professionals real time, you again are missing a tech stack problem. You haven't even allowed them to change their behavior manually, and you could have accelerated this with marketing automation. But then we get into screen sharing and web conferencing, social listening like employee advocacy. So basically the question, can they figure out the blocking and the tackling? And then next, is my sales team ready to sell to the modern buyer? If I give them a tool and I'm still measuring dials a day, and I'm still measuring activity by email send, listen, you get what you measure. And if that's what you're measuring, then throw them all the tools you want. But if the not being measured certain way, and on their one-on-ones and their activity, you're not being followed up and accountable to that change of the modern buyer, well, you can forget about it. It's just going to sit dormant. Next, how would new tools help my organization accelerate this process? The reality is, okay, as a VP of sales, you can control 3 levers. You can either control the volume of deals, the velocity of deals, so I want to shorten the time to get from a new inbound lead all the way to customer, or the probability of close. Okay, so you've got, think of like you're the Wizard of Oz here. You got 3 levers. The reality is, every tool I buy, it has to change the probability, and that's why you should always do a baseline. What is my baseline of volume, velocity, and probability today? Then you throw a tool on it. I'll give you a real example. So we use SalesLoft. So SalesLoft is a tool that our sales team is leveraging as a cadence to remind them of touching touch point 1, 2, 3, 4, like, you know, the rhythm of a multi-touch point approach. So we already knew our baselines. So when you buy a tool like SalesLoft, I want to see either we increase the volume of inbound leads. Well, that's that's what Cadence at SalesLoft doing? Okay. Or is it shortening the deal cycle? Like, is because we're improving our ability to do multi-touch point approach, it's actually shortening the deal because we're getting smarter on those deals? Or is it increasing the probability? If it doesn't do one of those three things, then why buy the tool? You need to go back to the manual process, figure out what, are we even doing it manually? And if we are, what is our baseline? Then we need to throw an accelerant on it and measure the incremental impact. Can I calculate an ROI or business return from these tools? How did that impact my main KPIs? I think I just touched that. Volume, velocity, and probability. It's got to do one of the three. Not every tool can do all three. Most can only move one, but that's fine. If you double your inbound leads, or if you start horse trading and cutting 8 days off of your sales cycle per deal, that's a massive win over time. So, you know, what is that ROI? So rethinking this process. Change the way they think about it, your team thinks about it. Give them the skills to do it manually. Then throw accelerant on it. Is going to make a massive difference. It's going to change your core performers specifically, which is about 50 to 70% of your workforce. So at scale, this is where it really matters. If you can get the core performer, the person that's almost at quota or getting close to quota, and you get them 5% better, that's where the massive impact makes sense. So I really hope that this added some value to your life. Please, we talk a lot about this sort of thing in our Social Selling Mastery book. You can get it at getsocialselling.com. This is the best practices for your VP of Sales, VP of Marketing, VP of Sales Enablement and Operations, and then, of course, an entire social selling routine for your sales professionals on what to do, when to do it. And if you have any questions, you can always reach me on my Twitter account. Happy to reach back, help you at any time, put you in touch with our team. But I really appreciate your time, and I hope that you understand that once you that you change the way you think, and then you start practicing it with skills, once you get pretty good at something, now buy the really expensive cleats that make you faster, and that's the tool. Thanks a lot, everybody.